Russell Westbrook has become a better passer. You watch him, and he is now not getting those assists where I'm trying to score. Oh, I can't. Let me kick it to you. He's looking for guys. He's setting guys up. And Paul George, this is no coincidence. Paul George, Steven Adams, Dennis Schroeder, and Jeremy Grant are all having career years.
Because
Westbrook has become a better facilitator.
I want to go far, there's no stopping. I see them watching, I see them hating. One day I swear I'ma be on the station. Mama, I gotta make moves.
We all know when you look at Russell Westbrook and you kind of analyze his career, we kind of all have that same perception of him. He's selfish. You know, he never quite got it. He's not a true point guard. He ran Kevin Durant out of town. He wasn't good with Victor Oladipo. He basically makes his talent worse. Now, I'm not saying that's, you know, what everyone believes of him, but I think the overall perception of Russell Westbrook is that. I personally kind of believe that. I think most people look at Russell Westbrook in that light. Like, he's a selfish player. He's a second fiddle guy. He can never lead a team to an NBA championship. Look at his history with Kevin Durant. Look at, KD when he left him. For the most part, I feel like that's how most people perceive Russell Westbrook and kind of look at his career. But I feel like this year with the, evolution of Paul George, it might be changing just a little bit. After Kevin Durant left Russell Westbrook in about 2016, I believe it was, Russell Westbrook had that MVP season. He went berserk. He averaged a 30-point triple-double, and basically everyone on his team was kind of like in a low light because no one cared about anybody else besides Russell Westbrook. And although I know Billy Donovan and Sam Presti, they were basically dedicated to get Russell Westbrook that MVP, and they didn't care what they had to do it. It just made Russell Westbrook look a little low at the end because it was like, okay, yeah, you can score these points, but this is exactly why Kevin Durant left you. And then the next season, they magically land Paul George out of nowhere. I mean, no one actually saw that coming. Everybody thought Paul George was going to Cleveland back then with LeBron and all that, but they got Paul George for kind of a steal. Not really, because they got Victor Oladipo and it seemed to work out for both sides. They got Paul George, and then Paul George played a year with him with Carmelo Anthony, and it was like they still can't click. I mean, Russell Westbrook doesn't make players better. I mean, with all that talent they landed or seemed to land before the 2017 season, Carmelo Anthony and Paul George went home in the first round to a young up-and-coming Utah team where, they kind of made Joe Ingles look like the second coming to Larry Bird. So it was like, Russell Westbrook can't lead you anywhere. And in the free agency, everyone thought Paul George was leaving and going to the Lakers with LeBron James, but it didn't happen that way. Paul George actually enjoyed playing with Russell Westbrook enough to where he actually signed a 4-year, I believe, max contract and stayed with Russell Westbrook, something that most people didn't see coming. And to basically speed it up and get to the premise of this video, Paul George is actually playing the best basketball of his career. I know a lot of people fantasize about what he was doing in Indiana and saying that was the best Paul George. But if you look at the numbers across the chart everywhere, this is clearly the best Paul George we've ever seen. I think it's gotten to the point where when I look at OKC, instead of looking at Russell Westbrook as the main guy, yeah, he's the headline and he's the face and all that stuff for OKC because he's been there the longest, but Paul George might actually be the best player on the team. When Paul George has his magical nights and all that stuff, for some reason OKC seems to click and they actually win. When Russell Westbrook has his nights, as we've seen, I mean, it's like 50-50. Sometimes they win, sometimes they don't, and it looks like Russell Westbrook was selfish. But this year, I'm kind of seeing a different Russell Westbrook where he's kind of allowing players and allowing his superstars, other superstar Paul George, to kind of be the man, and it's actually working out because OKC, they're third in the West. I think about 4 games behind, Golden State, and they look like a serious threat this year. And a lot of it to me is just the maturity of Russell Westbrook and finally allowing Paul George to be the man, because if you really look at it, Paul George is probably the best player on the team. Defensively, offensively, he's probably the best. He's taller. That's kind of where the NBA is right now. And in his last 13 games, Paul George has been going berserk. He's been averaging 35 points, about 8 rebounds, about 5 assists, 2 steals, 48% from the field, 45% from deep. Paul George is probably the best player on the team. And I know that probably sounds a little far-fetched. It probably sounds like a reach or whatever like that. But if you really look at it, Paul George, before he got hurt, he was in the Eastern Conference Finals with LeBron James as the leader on the team. Russell Westbrook, he's been to the finals and all that stuff, but you got to remember that was with Kevin Durant and James Harden. Paul George is probably a better player by himself than Russell Westbrook. He's taller, he plays better defense, he can shoot better. I mean, Russell Westbrook, he's a good player, but I think I'll give the edge to Paul George. The only problem that I really had with Paul George is that I kind of felt like he shrunk when he you saw LeBron James on the floor. Every time they met in the first round, you know, after his injury, they got swept, I think, by Cleveland twice 2 years in a row. So I kind of feel like, man, Paul George, you got to step up eventually. And then I seen Indiana last year with Victor Oladipo take him to 7 games. So that kind of made Paul George look bad. But now that I'm seeing this Paul George, I feel like he's playing like he's top 5 in the league, and you got to give him that. And I appreciate Russell Westbrook so much for letting it happen and finally realizing that you need another player, because when Kevin Durant was doing this, you can still see Russell Westbrook still trying to look like, man, I'm that dude. Like when Kevin Durant got injured with like a foot injury, I remember Russell Westbrook was going berserk, basically trying to show, man, I can be the best player on the team too. At this stage with Russell Westbrook in his 10th, 11th season, you can tell he's got out of that mindset. He's even dunking less. So I'm looking at a different Russell Westbrook, and I think he's really maturing. So basically with this video, I think Russell Westbrook is finally understanding that it's okay for another player on your team to be better than you, or have the light, or have better numbers, or kind of, you know, be the guy for the season, because it's actually working. So I appreciate that. And I think it took Kevin Durant, Victor Oladipo, James Harden, all those players leaving, and, you know, Paul George signing with him again, to realize that Paul George, you need him. You actually need him to be the best Paul George he can be, so y'all can actually win, because you don't win a one-man show. Like what James Harden is doing, I agree with Kobe wholeheartedly. It's not going to work, because you need other players and you need that collective pieces. So that's just kind of how it is. But that's the video, guys. I know this video is kind of everywhere and all that stuff, but I've just been noticing how Paul George and Russell Westbrook, their relationship seems like amazing, and I feel like for some reason this can possibly be OKC's year. I'm not saying they're going to win it, but they look really, really coherent and very, very good. They seem like they love each other. I don't know, so I'm keeping my eye on that. I'm sorry I kind of took a break. Like I said, I have a, you know, outside life, you know, other stuff, so that's just kind of what it was. But I'm back posting videos. Make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe. Follow my social media sites. Do all that great stuff, guys. And until next time, stay tuned.